And our children, you guys could head to the back there as we prepare for service today. Again, kids, if you want to be in the back. Again, appreciate all the hard work that goes into just the music and the care for kids, and just excited about these fifth graders leveling up and just all the good stuff there. The rest, we are continuing our study on home improvement. So we've kind of gone through a little bit of a journey where we talked about our foundation and really to build that on what Jesus said, and not just hearing it, but to actually live it and do it. There's a difference. And if you have kids, you know there's an absolute difference between doing and hearing only, right? Like there is and so we know what he meant when he said that, right? So there's a foundation, and then we talked about our faith. How do we move our faith to our children? Really, how do we do that? And hopefully it was an encouraging message for our moms that even as moms, you can live out that faith and to bring that to your kids and to model that before your kids. And then we talked about marriage last week, and really just to build your marriage on Christ and is communication and commitment, and really just coming down to letting your yes be yes, and then also showing and sharing your love to the individual. And a little phrase that came out is my wife gave me her best, and so I can give my rest, right? I can give the rest. So till death do me part, she gets Sean. We can debate if that's a good thing or not for her, but we know that that's what she definitely deserves and honor in that way. And so today, as we think of home improvement, so one thing about preaching these kind of messages is when you preach that, there's a point where my wife can use that stuff as leverage for me. So she's like, speaking of home improvement, so last Monday, guess what I did? We were chopping trees and doing all kinds of stuff, and I do not like yard work at all. It was always punishment for me as a kid, and so it still feels like punishment to me as an adult. And so we worked hard. So we were doing home improvement, and it reminded me when we first got our house in Memphis. It had concrete floors, and we had moved into the house when it had some repairs it needed. And so one of the jobs that I was to do is to put new wood floor in this house while we lived in this house. Now, there's one thing when it's an empty house and there ain't nothing there and you're putting in stuff, but when you live there and you're making improvements, it is not fun, because you have to move the living room into the bedroom and then the bedroom into the living room. We were adjusting all that. In this season of my life, changes and movements and improvements never happen in a vacuum. We had 2 kids that were under the age of 4, and we had one on the way, and my wife was about 8 months pregnant during this project. And so one thing I learned very quickly is I'm not very good at angles at all, angles. I'm just not good at the angles, cutting the angles. My wife could really do well. She could measure it. And so I had to convince my very, very pregnant wife, who she didn't have the pregnant glow. She would agree with you. She did not, the pregnancy was not fun. Now, we love babies, but during that season in Memphis in June, July, here she is helping me with this because she wants this project done. She wants it done now, right? And so we're cutting these, and there was one, this moment comes to mind. We were doing tile in the bathroom, and it was 1 o'clock. We had to give the saw back that night. So we borrowed someone's saw, and we were giving it back the next morning, and so I was trying to get this thing done, and I couldn't get this one angle. Tina would try to get it right, and it started to escalate, right? You're tired, you're trying to get it. It's 1 o'clock in the night. Things were said that we forgave later, right? It's that kind of tension. But then it finally came to a place where there was one tile in the middle of it that we cut it in half and just set it in there. If you were a professional tile guy, you would be ashamed. So what we did is put a rug over it. I had to save my marriage, right? But that home improvement, because we wanted to make our home a place where we wanted to live. That was the idea. We could have survived with a concrete floor. It wasn't horrible. A lot of people have maybe worse conditions than that, right? But there was something about that. We wanted to make it a place where we wanted to be, we wanted to live, we wanted to enjoy. We wanted to be a place where we could invite other people into, that were not ashamed or embarrassed. It was a place we want to live. And so as I think about home improvement and the sermon today, really just making a place, making our home a place where you and your family want to live. Like, that's really the desire. We want to live there. We spend a lot of our time at home. And so I'm saying not just decoration, but just really a place where the atmosphere, the hospitality, the idea that when my kids, as they grow up and they become adults, so they'll want to come back and visit, right? Like, I want it to be home. And one thing as parents, we often forget, we forget that sometimes that the way we treat our children when they're young can eventually have negative or positive. Again, everybody's got issues, right? But there is a point where your kids will make a decision on you regardless if you like it or not. They're going to make a decision. My kids won't always be 10, 12, 14, and 16, right? They're mentally, I got after one of them the other day, and I just could see in their mind, one day I'm going to show you. It's okay. I got more money than them right now, so it's like, I don't care. But I know, like, I want it to be a place where they want to live. And so we've worked hard on that. So we're going to talk about that. So one way, I guarantee you that you too, now again, there's all kinds of situations, and I'm not saying this is not a time to begin to think back at past or all that stuff, but just think about your heart and your home now. And maybe there was a past or some decision was made that just hurts and things like there's an opportunity to maybe make some improvements. And because the truth is we all need help from time to time. Like, no one's got it put together. And as you transition to I thought having little babies was tough, right? So there was a time every kid was under the age of 6. And it was rough. Like, there was sleepless time. My sister-in-law just had her baby, and my wife's up there visiting them. And I was like, what is it like? She's like, we're tired. That little baby has taken control of that whole entire house, right? And so those days when I see people with little kids, I'm just like, oh, I just feel tired. Just, part of me just wants to buy them dinner. Just, go take a nap on me. I'll watch the kids because those are tough moments. But those, as they transition, each different season is a different season. And I used to think it was like blocks. Like, you had no kids and then you have kids. But it's a transition, and how you adjust in those transitions, and it just continues to transition. You don't think about your kids being 18 and 20 until they're 16, 14. Riley Ann the other day had this moment. She's like, I'll be 18 in 3 years, She panicked. She's like, what am I going to do? I was like, you probably start thinking about that, right? But those moments, those transitions. So really for you, if you're not married or you don't have a family yet, now is the time to begin to prepare, to think through. And really, it starts with me. It starts with me. It starts, you bring you to your home. If you want to make it a place where you want to live, you have to bring the best version of yourself to your place where you live. Like, you have a part in this. And so we all have a part in this journey. And so we want to make our home. So it takes some work in this. And so one verse that I believe captures this, and I would think about this, if we had a home that had these elements. One thing my wife, when we first got married, my main job was we get in bed and I just get cozy. And if so one thing about me is when I lay in bed, it's about 5 seconds and I'm asleep. Like, boom, my head hits the pillow and I'm asleep. But what my wife would want me to do is do a quick perimeter check. And I'd go around and check all the doors and make sure they're all locked. And, I could care less. I don't know. It just doesn't, if someone kills me here in sleep, at least I didn't know. That's kind of my heart in it. But it really, really affected her. So finally, she was so tired of me not doing it, she decided to be the perimeter checker. Now we've got kids. Check the doors before you go to bed, And then, so there was one time that we had a sliding glass window, and sure enough, one day I got the mail, and there was my wife had a nightmare about someone slipping into the sliding glass door, so we got one of those lock arm things to make sure nobody gets in. So again, but that perimeter check, and I think of this verse, it's the fruit of the Spirit. And if we were to do a perimeter check of our homes and our lives, is it a place where we want to live, where our family wants to live? Is it a place that and I think this really captures it. And the Spirit, it's the fruit of the Spirit, but just think about this in the context of a home. A home where love and joy and peace and patience, kindness and goodness and faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It says, against such things there's no law. Now we talk about that as individuals, but if you had your home that was set up in a place that had these, like when we think of charity, of love, of kindness, sacrificial love for each other, A home that is pure of joy and gladness. Nothing is more sweet than to hear a belly chuckle laugh, right, from one of the kids, or just the happiness of a home, the joy, the squeals of a screaming kid, right? Like those things. I was talking to my wife on the phone, and I heard that little girl. She was screaming from the top of her lungs. But what joy it is to have that little precious baby in the home. And so I think of a place where peace, a freedom from worry, a confidence. One time my kids said to me, Dad, are we rich or poor? And I said, the very fact you're asking that question tells you a lot. Right? Like just that peace, that somebody else is, like you feel safe. You feel like you can live here, like you can be here. As we do patience, emotional calm. A place where you can come. One thing that I've vowed, and one thing my father-in-law, who didn't like me, who really probably liked me okay. I don't know. I don't know if he's really. I've never asked him directly. I don't know if I care. But anyway, one thing that he said to my wife one time, he wrote a letter. He said, "There is peace on the Tina front because of Sean," and that's one thing that I've wanted to add. Is just that patience, a calm, a place where you feel safe, where you feel like you can be. A kindness, a place where we do something beneficial for other people, where sacrifice is seen, faithfulness and trustworthiness, dependability and gentleness. We see an attitude or behavior. So there's all this. If you were to think of a home that has these qualities, listen, there's a place I want to live, right? It's a place where truth and grace live, where a place where people, care about you and you're cared for. And so when we think of our home, one thing about church leadership, the Bible's very clear that those that lead their home are the ones that lead the church. Like that's one of the qualities of. So how do we know someone's a great leader for the church or for the ministry of God? They have evidence. We begin to investigate their home life, how their wife is treated, how their husbands or how their children is treated. How's the family relationships? And so that is a product. If they're faithful in those areas, there shows faithfulness and dependability in this context as well. And so as we think about this, I think of 4 pillars that really should be, if we're going to capture this verse of this, where the fruits of the Spirit, a place where I want to live. Not only that, I want my family and I want to live where it's a place where we can feel safe and protected, a place that we can feel unity and care, okay? So the first thing is, when I think of this, I think of a place that's honest, right? Honesty. A place where I can be yourself, where you can be yourself. So when I think of my home and I think of a home I want to live, I want it to be a place where I can be me. And I've been to homes where that's not always the case, right? Like you've been where the parents have expectations, where the child wants to do one thing and the parent has expectations. So when we think about this, again, we're checking. Now, I'm not saying that every home, like there's all of a sudden you're going to listen to these things, but is my home a place where there's honesty and care? And the way that I really kind of capture that idea for me is a couple things. I think this is where the gospel is seen clearly. So one thing about the gospel reminds me, again, that Jesus died like I'm a sinner. Like my heart is wicked, my ways are wicked, I'm selfish. Even in my most noble moments, I still have enough Sean in there to want my own motive and direction. So I'm broken, and the gospel is my solution for that brokenness. That Jesus loved me enough that he would die on the cross for me. And so he gives me value, and then he also reminds me that Jesus died on the cross for me. And so when I think I've got it all put together, I'm reminded again over and over that I'm a sinner, that Jesus died to rescue me from me. And so a place where it's safe. And so a couple things also, ideas where truth and love and truth and grace, right? So you can have a place that's very truthful. I've heard people speak of their home or maybe their church, like, man, we just tell the truth. Well, listen, my wife says, hey, does this dress look fat? I don't need to tell the truth, right? I don't care what she says. You know what? Like, that's not what I say. Like, there's a way. That's one thing I've had to teach with Wayne, my youngest. Like, there's a time to tell the truth, but you don't have to be so brutal and honest about the truth. Like that, there's grace in there as well, right? So if my wife says this, look, you know what, honey? I'm going to buy you $1,000 dress to make you look pretty because you're worth more than that, right? Like, there's ways to do it. And if you need some notes or some hints, I can help you out, guys, okay? Like, you don't have to be honest. Well, she asked me the truth. Dummy. You want to stay married, right? We talked about that last week. So there's honesty, but it's a place where you can be you. Where you can be you. And really a hope where a place where you can be honest. And again, so you have to work that. There has to come a place where you're honest about who you really are. And so the way my wife and I, honestly, we become real about the brokenness and the self-centeredness we have. Like, I'm not always right. It's not my way or the highway. Like, I recognize that I bring some stuff to the table as well, right? And so as we think of this, we think a place that's safe but real. And I really think that is in parenting as well. So a place where it's honest. Now, again, one thing you realize about kids really early is they are dishonest kids. They're broken too, and they'll lie to your face. So one of my kids, I won't name the one, I'll try to be careful to just not to hurt them, but that one was the greatest liar I've ever met. I couldn't tell. They would tell me, I would play tricks, like they'd be like, I'm gonna ask Jesus if you're lying, and the other ones would confess and everything. That one would be like, what'd they say? What'd he say? So you have to begin to build trust. Like, so what we've done is we've tried to, like, a couple things. We deal with truth, like you can't lie. So lying is like death sentence. We'll talk more about it in a moment. But lying is like a liar. Like, if you lie, if it's a place where you can't be you, and a place where you're projecting somewhere, you'll never grow from that. And so we really work on those things. And so the key is, this is what the key is. Mom and dad, you got to live in honesty too. A lot of times our kids are not doing things outside of us. And there's like studies on this where they show that kids mostly stay within the boundaries of their parents. One reason why they act the way they do is because it doesn't fall too far from the tree, right? And so we got to be honest. We got to be honest about who we are and how we treat people and how we act. And really, a lot of that stuff is modeling. I'll tell one more story about my wife. She's not here, so she can't get mad. So one time, there was kids. There was some markings on this church van. There's fingerprints all over. And one of my wife's favorite word is stupid. Like, she loves the word stupid. We even got to a place where I'll pay you $100 if you can not say stupid for a week. She couldn't do it. She couldn't last a day. It was stupid, this, stupid. So anyway, we were driving, and Wayne's like, Aaron, he sees these marks. He's like, stupid kids. He points at these fingerprints, and I was like, Aaron, what are you calling him stupid? He's like, Mama do. And so there was one of those moments, right? So they follow us. And look, there's many more stories about me. I've told many of those as well. But we truly are, our children follow our practices. They live in our home. And you don't believe it. How come we fight our spouses the way Mama did it, right? Or Dad, like, this is the way Mama did it when I was a kid, right? Like that because we know that we follow those practices. And so another thing we look at in Philippians, I like this verse. He says, only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come see you or am absent, that I may hear of you and you're standing in the Spirit in one mind. Now, this is speaking to a church, but I like the idea of your manner worthy of the gospel. So wherever you are, if you're home or church, and really, the idea is what you're doing at home comes to church with you, right? Like, who you are should be the same. And so we see this. So not only that, the other question, or Luke 6:31 says this, do to others as you would have them do to you. So if you want to live in a home that's honest, treat people like you want to be treated. So a lot of times, the way I talk to my kids, if I hear them talk to their brother and sister, a lot of it's a reflection of the way I talk to my kids too. And so I need to treat them like I want to be treated. I want them to treat their brothers and sisters the same way. I always tell them, look, hey, every kid has a dad. Like, don't talk to my kid that way, And so be careful. And so we recognize that. So there's truth, but grace. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be everything. You can make mistakes. It's a safe place. And this is the time, as a parent, this is the time where you grow your kids. You let them. The other day we had an incident with a neighbor. This is a good season because they got dad there to help them, walk through. Dad kind of showed his colors too with the neighbor. We have a couple neighbors that just want to go after us about our dogs. And so, but again, it revealed some things about me. Revealed some things about us. We as a family want to stick together, but also do to others. So when I think of an honest place, it's a place where the gospel is free, where it's a place where it's honest, where we're not perfect. We don't expect perfection, but we want to challenge to be a better version of ourselves. We want a place where we don't accept excuses. We know where we are, and we challenge each other to be the best version of ourselves. Okay, not only that, but a place that's happy. I think this is a place where you feel loved and joyful. So when I think of it as a place where I want to live in a place that's honest, but also a place that is happy. I'm telling you, we have a lot of fun. So there's things in our, there is like holes in our drywall because Dad was shooting everybody with a Nerf gun, like just going at it. We have some pretty awesome Nerf guns too. And so and I broke the door. And so I couldn't get after anybody. But if we ever move out of that house, people are going to find Nerf gun bullets everywhere. Because we started with like 1,000. We only have like 200 left. And I don't know where they went. And we've only played within our own house. So they're somewhere. They're probably rats packed somewhere, just build a nice nest there. But anyway, a place where you feel loved and belong. Again, let's go back to the fruits of the Spirit. This is the atmosphere, a place where joy and love, where goodness and kindness. And so there's monitoring as a parent's view. Like I monitor my kids the way they treat each other. And really just try to, model it, really, but a place where we're happy. And again, it starts with me. Like, if I come always frustrated or irritated, I'm the guy shutting off lights, complaining about the messy rooms, all that stuff. Like, again, there's some of that's truth, right? But there's also a tendency, is this a place where they're excited? So one thing I've always tried to be, I never had a dad live in my house as a kid, so I never had that. But every time I was at someone's house, Dad would show up. It always seemed scary. Oh, Dad's coming. Oh no, So I thought to myself, I wanted to be a place where my kids would be like, Dad's here, like the party just whoop whoop. We just kicked in. So one thing we do is we play music too loud. So it's nice to have a dad that's like an old rocker. Like I'm a rocker. Like no music is never loud enough to me. So if you ever say music's too loud in here, probably shouldn't tell me because I can't hear it anymore anyway. But also, it's never loud enough. Like when your kids scold you for having too loud of music, that's like an honor. It's like, you're welcome. I wish my mom would have said that to me, right? Or I wish it would have been the same way. But anyway, that rock, that kindness, that place where it's okay we tease each other, we love each other, a place where safe. And I think when I think of the disciples when Jesus was a safe place where they could be themselves, where there was happy, there was hope, there was peace, there was joy. Again, we're not living in perfection. It's not this place. It's just a place, simply, listen, where I want to live. And if I want to live, I'm going to help as the leader of my home. I'm going to be the one that helps set the precedent. And so I'm going to do a car check. And as I sit in the driveway, I'm going to, it didn't go well today. And so what do I bring into the home? Is it always work? Is it always frustration? Is it always worry? What am I bringing? Is it goodness? Is it a spirit of joy, of happiness, of a spirit of love and forgiveness? And so as we see it, so a place where you can be yourself and a place where you feel loved and joyful. And that really matters. It matters. I thank God that, and I really give credit to my wife, that really she's created a place where the minute I leave my front door, I want to be back home. I'm kind of a homebody anyway, but like if I go anywhere, if I go on business or anything, it's just do what I got to do and then let's get back home. And I'll drive all night to get home. I'll do whatever I can because it's a place where I want to live. I want to live. And so not only that, is it a place so it's honest, happy, and then a place of honor, a place where you feel respected and heard. So I've learned some things as a dad, and so a couple verses that we see in the Bible, maybe you know these. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." So there's a place of honor, respect. It says, "This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land." It means what it says. Like if you want to live a long life, honor and respect your parents. It says, fathers, do not provoke your children, to anger. But it's so funny sometimes, right? Like, it's so funny. But fathers, do not provoke your children. You can cause bitterness and anger and frustration in your kids. I saw one kid, when I was a youth leader, he had stacked his wood for his dad. And you know how a kid stacks wood, like just like shake your head. Like, what his dad did, though, is he went out there and unstacked it all and stacked it back up. And I heard that kid say, I'll never do it again. Never did. Now, he might have been forced to do it, but he did it as an honor. And so we have to recognize that. There's a part of me too. Listen, I can be hard on those things. Like, this is the standard, but you gotta understand your kids. You gotta recognize who they are. And I think, and one thing I've noticed, so I can punch Wayne as hard as I want, playfully, just so you guys know, we're recording this, playfully, and he just like, dude, let's go at it. He starts dive bombing me, whatever. But now, Rachel, if I just like look at her just sideways or have a frown on my face, it causes a different response. She's a different individual. And so we want a place where honor. So it says, fathers, and then also in Colossians 3:20, it says, children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. So there is a responsibility. And so we've kind of known, we've got it to three things that we deal with our kids. We didn't get this ourselves. We actually copied it from somebody else, but this has really helped us. So we only punish, and we find what their cookie, like what they want to do, and then we find their kryptonite. And so it's moved to the phone right now. Like, the phone is kind of that thing. And so sometimes it's pretty, one of them, it was like petting the dog. So they didn't do their homework, they didn't get to pet the dog, and they were very, very upset about that. And so I know, but what it does is it motivates them to obey. So a couple things we respond to pretty heavily. And so one thing I learned, again, this is just Sean, okay? I just decided when we had kids, and because I had a sister that she was my stepsister, and she controlled the home where my dad lived, and it was just a miserable home. You get a 2-year-old in charge of everything, it is not a place you want to be. You talk about, like, just not a place you want to be. So I decided, this is just Sean, no 2-year-old, no 12-year-old, no 10-year-old, no 8-year-old, no 19-year-old is going to control my home. I get to control my home. They want to go live that way, go somewhere else and live that way. But at my house, we're going to have, this is the way it's going to be. So we had to go through some, Riley Ann, and we tell the story. Riley Ann was not, she would say every word she could ever say when she was 2. She would not say please or thank you. She'd say hippopotamus. She'd say every word you could ever imagine. He's like, say please. She'd look at you like, nope. Say thank you. Nope. So one day we're like, it's war on Riley. And so what we did is she got nothing. And Aaron loved it because that time he got everything. It's like, say thank you. She's like, nope, here you go, Aaron. She'd look at Aaron like, how dare. He's like, thank you. Thank you. Say please. She'd look at you like, no. For about 4 days. And this was this moment where it kills you as a parent to do this to your kids. But listen, it matters because you're never in a grocery store and you hear a screaming kid. You're like, man, that's just a delight to be around, right? Never. How do you know a kid is an honor or a fun to be around? They're respectful, they honor, they're okay. So what we did is if a stranger said how good they were, the kids would get some gum. And man, there was times like people would say, you're good, and we give them gum or give them candy or whatever it was, but we did. So 3 things we honed in on: disobedience. So if we tell them to do something, they don't do it, disobedience. Disrespect. If they're disrespected to their mom, one time one of them called mom lazy. It was not a good day in the house, okay? So yeah, I know. They did not call mom lazy anymore. Disrespect. And then dishonesty. Personally, I just cannot stand. I met a 30-year-old person one time that lied every time they opened their mouth, and I could not understand why a grown man would lie like that. And so it's like, I tell them, listen, I'm your lawyer, never lie to me. I don't care how bad it is, tell me the truth, and we can deal with that together. Now, it was like, you may be in trouble if you don't lie. You may be in trouble because there's still punishment. You can't just get out of it for not lying. But you always, forever will be punished if you lie. You always will. And so we just honed in on those things because we want to be a place of honor, of respect. And so if you're obedient, you're respectful, and you're honest, I think you can keep a job, right? You can keep a job. And so, in one of those moments as we learn this is one thing I do. We didn't do this ourselves. We learned, and there's parents here. I watched how Patty and Norman, and there's others, Karma, like I've seen others, how they have their adult children act in ways. And I want my children to act. I'm not the expert in this. I learned from other parents. There was one time we had one of our kids, and Tina's mom, who's had 9 kids. 9 kids. Tina was like telling her how to hold a baby and how this. I was like, listen, she's done it. She's forgot more than you know. She'll be okay, you know? And so we just learn from that. So it's a place of honesty, a place of happiness, a place of honor, and then I think a holy place. And when I think of a holy place, a lot of times we think of like this weird music, like just this not untouchable. Really, that's set aside for God's use. I want my family, and I'm not saying they all have to be preachers or all that. Like, I just want them to be set aside so we're available to be used for God. And I don't know what that will look like, but that's why one of them plays drums. That's why they sing. That's why they do the words. Like, I want them as a family. We want to serve together, and we want to do that. So it says in 2 Timothy 2:20 and 21, it says, now a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but of wood and clay, and some for honor use and some for dishonorable. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart as holy. And that's not just untouchable. That is actually to be used by God. And really, I think I have a responsibility as a parent to help my kids, not to be an example, to be a place where we're honest, that we're happy, that we respect and trust authority, that we honor those that are in authority over us. And so they'll watch me do that. And then the reason why we want to do that, because we want to be used by God. My heart is to be used by God. My family is to be used by God. One of the greatest honors is to see my kids serve the Lord. And so that's why I want to create a place, as selfish as it may sound, a place where I want to live, where my family and I want to live. And I think all of us have that desire. All that desire. So as we think of this, we think of a place where you can be yourself, a place where you feel loved and joyful, a place where you feel respected and heard and set apart for God's use, a place that you can be set apart for God's use. And so as we think of this, this is where as we have that in our own homes and lives, we bring that to our faith community. We bring that to faith community, and that's where you learn. So it was about 8 years now. My oldest was 9 at the time, or 9. Yep, he's like 9 at the time. So Tina was working herself to death, making all these kids, doing the laundry, doing the dishes. I started helping with dishes. Fun fact, I actually like to do dishes. You make me mad, I'll do the dishes. I don't know why. I just want to, so my wife she just calls me names all the time, so I'll just go and do the dishes. So if I have frustration, I do the dishes. Anyway, my kids, they just sat around like bums, just sitting there, just enjoying life, 9, 7, 5, and 4. Like they're just freeloaders, right? And so we went to this vacation with my cousin, and his kids were older. And so what I saw them do is they grabbed my kids, they grabbed all of our luggage, they put it in the place to go, they started making dinner, and I'm like, what is this? I want my kids to grow to be that kind of kids. I want them to be responsible and respectful. I want them to do. And so I didn't know how to do it, so I was like, teach me what you know. And so we began to learn, and again, we began to put, it's amazing. One thing we learned, one thing we did, this is free. Your kids are gonna love this, okay? Once they are taught to do something, we do not do it for them. We try not to do it for them. Now, sometimes you'll see me, oh, why are you doing that? I'm trying not to do it, because sometimes they just don't do it right? Like it's hard. That half work that they do is frustrating. But it's needed. They need a place to grow and learn how to do this. So today, if the house is messy, they know if they clean their room, do their homework, do the dishes, start a load of laundry, and they're caught up in home and have read their Bible, they can pretty much do whatever they want to do. And so that helps cut screen time. That's helped because they have stuff to do. They have responsibilities. And this is what we want to do is, because I had met a guy in high school, he was 20 years old, and he couldn't do laundry. He didn't know how to do a mail. His dad did everything for him. And so I feel like there's a responsibility on us to send our kids, help them be useful of God, to be used of God. Now, it's not the way mom cleans. And so sometimes I have to take mom off, like, easy. We didn't have to do 90% of it. We'll go back and fix out the things they didn't do right. But we want to give them, an opportunity. Again, the key of all this is I just want a place where I can live and my family wants to live, and we can love each other. I just want a place where we can live. And so make a home a place where you and your family want to live. So we have some work to do. So as you go in your home, as you do a perimeter check of your life, you think of some of those areas that maybe you need to work through. And again, always remember it starts with me. It starts with me. So with every head bowed and eye closed, we'll close. And so what is your next step? What is it? Maybe it's a home that needs to be honest. Maybe there's some things that you need to confess to God, that you and your wife need to get on the same page together. You just need to be honest, because we all need help from time to time, and so that's really important as a place of honesty, a place where maybe today is a day where you would recognize, we need to, our home, I bring a lot of my stress and cares to my home, and it's not a place where it feels welcoming and warm. And so maybe that's some things. Maybe that takes some opportunity to clean up, to create a space where people want to be. And so these are real applicable, like we can bring them to our life. And so where is God asking you to take that step? Where is there, as you do your perimeter check, is it a place where you want to live? And if not, what is God asking you to do? Because we all have a part. We all have a place in this. And so whatever it is, if you need prayer, if you need some encouragement, if you need some, just to recognize, you don't have to do it alone. You're not the expert in the room. It's hard to process through this stuff, but just encourage that you're not alone, that we love you and care about you and want to walk with you in life. And so maybe today, obviously, if you come to a realization that you have not had a relationship with Christ, because it really does start with your relationship with Jesus. That really is what brings happiness and joy and honor to your life. That's really what brings a holiness, a sense of Christ-likeness into your life. And so if you feel like, man, I don't know if I have that relationship with Christ, that's where it begins. So if you invite Jesus into your life, you can bring that into your home. And so we encourage you, if you have any questions or need some prayer, I'll be in the back, and I'd love to walk with you where you're at. And so as we pray, Jesus, we love you. We thank you for your grace, your goodness. We thank you for the challenge. We thank you that we have a responsibility, Lord, a heart to share and show to those that we know the closest to us, to share your hope. And we just ask God, give us strength, give us courage, give us faith to take the step that we need to, and we'll give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. If you'd stand with us, we'd sing. Again, I'll be in the back if you need prayer.